Hello, Maker Core. Welcome to our sixth summary session. We have here today Mark Barnett, who is a pioneer in mobile making, and he will happily present some words of wisdom around his experience in mobile maker spaces.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here, Mark. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark, and I started a mobile maker education unit called the Geekbus, and it's probably the biggest mobile making unit that I've seen out there. From the early days of Spark Truck, which was basically like this taco truck that drove around. We got some inspiration from that to take making into more communities, and I guess later I can talk about the funding aspect of it if anyone is interested. It takes quite a bit of money to fund a mobile makerspace the size of the Geekbus. But let me share my screen with us. I do have a presentation. Let's try this. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. We can.
Okay, all right. This is a picture of the bus, and it's kind of hard to tell how large it is, from this picture, but I invite you to go to geekbus.com to take a look at more examples of photos, and there's a really good video that shows the outside and inside of it. But my story kind of starts off with, I actually had a physical makerspace, and it was the first educational makerspace in the state of Texas at the time, and it was located in an art museum in downtown San Antonio, which is where I'm at. And we ran the first cohort of Maker Core members in that makerspace. And after the summer was over, I was kind of left empty because in the summer we had students who were involved in summer camp programs come through, and then once school started, the makerspace was dead and empty, and there was no one visiting it. And I tried really hard to get schools to come and do visits and site visits and field trips and things, but it just wasn't really panning out for me. So I needed a way to reach more students. And I just happened to come across an idea from an investor with a company here in San Antonio called Rackspace. They're the world's second largest cloud hosting provider. And they ended up funding the bus. And so I took all of the equipment and all of the things that we had in our physical makerspace at the art museum and put it inside of the bus so that we could take the bus to the schools instead of having them come to us. So I guess, why is that important? Why do we need to reach more students? With funding to schools, they can't always afford to take students on field trips and visit places. So being able to take this to the schools was very impactful, and it ended up becoming a really high needed resource. Right now, the Geekbus is booked out 2 to 3 months in advance, and schools are constantly calling and asking for the Geekbus to come and visit their schools. The Geekbus also visits public libraries, museums, after-school centers like the Boys and Girls Club networks and those kind of things. So there's a wide variety of places that the bus can go to. And so we think it's impactful to be able to take the learning to them and just pull up in front of their school and honk our giant horn and let the kids come out. We do have some structured programs on the bus, and some of those take place outside near the bus, in the bus, but we also ask to use space inside of a school. So if we've got a large group of students, more than 30, then all of those students can't fit inside the bus. So we'll typically ask to borrow the library or the science lab or something like that. But what was also important to us is that with the bus, we could have a much wider geographical range. So in Texas, the Geekbus kind of goes from north of Austin all the way down to the valley at the border of Mexico, which is over like a 350-mile range. And the bus travels quite a bit in that corridor. I think we've probably logged almost 100,000 miles on the bus in the last 3 years, and we're kind of currently looking at maybe purchasing another bus to expand that reach and maybe even further across Texas. So with this opportunity with mobile making, we're able to reach more students. And the Geekbus has a primary mission of reaching students who don't normally have access to this kind of technology. So we specifically seek out to go to schools that are considered to be Title I, which is a federal description of low-income areas where students don't typically have access to this kind of thing. So it's really neat because we're providing this opportunity to kids who've never had experiences with technology and 3D printing and all the cool stuff that we do on the bus. So I know some of the things that were asked for me to talk about were some of the best practices and lessons learned from my years of mobile making on the Geekbus. And one of the things that we're always prepared to do is we're always ready to just drive up to a place and then quickly open our doors and show off. So we kind of have things organized on the bus in a way that, like, I can quickly pull out a table and a tablecloth and you know, some Raspberry Pis and some makeys and, you know, a handful of different things to engage people as quickly as possible. You know, besides going to schools and to museums and after-school programs, we also do a lot of like one-day events, school fairs or college fairs and industry fairs and those kind of things, where we're really just kind of having a touch and go experience as students come by. We want to be able to quickly engage them. So we're always ready to show off and always ready to engage people easily. And that can be hard with having a traveling vehicle with materials and boxes and things to set up. And so we've got kind of a process where we can drive up, open up the door, pull out the awning, set up a table, and we can be ready to go in like less than 20 minutes. Some other strategies that are kind of best practices that we've learned over time is about storage. And so we have gone through so many of those really cheap plastic boxes, the thin ones or like the see-through ones. Over time, those crack or fall apart or they're not sturdy enough. So it was quite a bit more expensive to use these high-end sturdy cases, but the long-term effect has been great because those things aren't going to break. They're very sturdy, very durable. They also like double as chairs and tables and all kinds of other things. But you know, we travel with 30 laptops, you know, 30 NXT robotics kits, 30 makeys and 30 little bits kits. So we kind of have like a 30 set of everything, and so it's quite a bit to manage. And we found that these there's Case Cruiser is a company, and there's a couple of others that make these similar high impact sturdy cases with the foam insert, so you can keep all of your materials protected and safe. And it's also easy to kind of just wheel these around if we're going to be setting up inside of a school. With that being said, all of our cases are labeled. So the contents of each case, there's a label on the outside that says this case has 30 laptops, 30 cords, or whatever, and we make sure that also helps us with keeping track of our materials and inventory and that kind of thing. A question that is often asked is like, do we have a problem with theft or things like taken? And I think it's because we're so organized and keep everything in boxes and labeled, we have never, ever, ever had a problem with that. Something else, you know, that may be overlooked is access to extension cords and power strips. Oftentimes we'll be at a school and we're kind of like maybe in a parking lot that's 100 feet or more away from the school. And while our bus does have a generator, it really is only enough to power the inside of the bus. And so if we're trying to teach outside of the bus and have laptops and other things set up, we need access to more power. And so now we have a box just dedicated to extension cords. And we've got like 1,000 feet of extension cords and 20 or 30 power strips. So in the beginning, it was, you know, like we would show up somewhere and then have to like borrow from the school or ask the school if they have extra power cords and that kind of stuff. So now we kind of like have it all packaged, ready to go, ready to set up. So you can never really have enough of those power strips. We are in Texas, where it is quite hot 6 months out of the year. So we kind of have this policy where we want our staff to stay cool and stay safe. So when we are doing an outdoor space, we make sure to have the awning up. We also have a couple of pop-up tents that we can pull out if we need to use more space that's covered in the shade. And then our bus has a nice little refrigerator in the cabin so that our staff have access to cold water and drinks and that kind of stuff. But even when I was talking to the people who run the Spark truck, which kind of went around nationally, trying to stay cool was always an obstacle. And so whenever we set up to go to a school, we always make sure that we have a plan of if the weather gets bad, if it's raining or if it's too cold, if it's too hot, to always have a plan B where we can use the inside of the school. So this picture shows us we're teaching Scratch in the school's gym. And it was, that particular day that we went at that school, the weather was bad, and so our backup plan was to use the gym. And so the custodians brought in some tables, and we set up our laptop and our projector on top of some boxes, and we started teaching Scratch in the gym. So that's why I say don't be afraid to ask for accommodations. Always have a backup plan for your space and what you're going to need, whether that's indoors or outdoors. And then make sure that your people are well hydrated and in a safe environment. I think that's kind of like my biggest takeaways. I've got quite a bit more information, and I'm sure that some of you might have some questions. We can do some Q&A, but I want to make sure that you can contact me after this hangout if there's more questions or more interest. My email is there. Feel free to email me. I'm also always on Twitter. I'm at maker_Mark, and follow me for all kinds of maker education related resources. Geekbus.com has information about the services that we provide in the bus. There's a really cool video of me explaining the outside and the inside of the bus. And then most recently, I spoke at TEDx San Antonio about the bus and about its impact in access to technology for students in low-income areas. So I'm going to go back to my video so you can see me. Am I back?
You're back. Thank you so much. That was great. For everyone who is tuning in live, the question and answer feature is up and running. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them. We have some ourselves that we'll but thank you so much. The first thing that I so much information, so much really great stuff. And I'm wondering, when you go to the schools, so when you go in either a classroom of 30, it seems like typically you bring in a program also, that there's a set kind of programming piece that the Geekbus provides. And I'm wondering if you've ever worked with teachers that kind of have an idea of what they want the program to be, or that are maybe more versed in this and it isn't necessarily an introduction for the teacher, and how that collaboration works, if there's kind of co-designing of what the day might look like.
Yeah, well, for the most part, we've got about 5 or 6 curriculum options. They're designed to be 3-hour blocks of time, and that's another thing that's important to me too, is that sometimes schools will request us to come and like where they want kids to just tour the bus for 15 minutes, and that really provides no long-term effect other than like, oh wow, look at these fancy things. So in order for us to have any lasting long-term impact educationally, we ask to have a 3-hour time block with the students. So typically the teacher or the school will pick from one of our prepackaged curriculums, but like you asked, every once in a while we'll get a teacher who says, we've already done NXT, or we've already done Scratch, and we want to do something else. And so we'll collaborate with that teacher and come up with something that's kind of the next level past 101 for them. But typically, the things that we do on the bus, because it's usually the first time these students are experiencing this, it's meant to be a 101. But it's very high impact. And in our 3-hour 101, we have, in our video game design class, we have students create a Scratch video game that then they can take home on a thumb drive.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a slightly related question, but on the more kind of like nitty-gritty practical side. Your programming kind of entails both onboarding youth into the bus, right? but then also offboarding materials and part of your programs out off the bus and into maybe the school space or the surrounding area. How does that work out or play out? I imagine with classrooms of 20 kids, what do the numbers look like? How do you get people on the bus, off the bus? Where do you do most of the programming?
Yeah, so that's when I first conceived the idea of the bus, I imagined that all of the students were going to be on the bus at the same time. But once we outfitted the bus with all the technology and all that kind of stuff, we actually had to have the bus approved by the fire marshal, and the fire marshal only approved the bus to hold 15 students and 3 adults at a time. So we never have more than that number of people in the bus. So the Geek Bus is always staffed by 3 people, 2 staff of the bus and a 3rd volunteer or a 3rd student or some other kind of intern. And so typically when we go to a school, we will ask to use the library or another space, and we'll set up all the instructional time in there. And then groups of students will go out to the bus, 15 at a time. So one of the Geek Bus staff members will stay in with 15 of the students. So if I have 30, 15 are going to stay in and continue learning, while 15 of them go out to the bus. And the bus provides like an auxiliary learning experience that lasts for about 20 minutes, where we will introduce them to another concept. So for example, if they're learning about 3D printing in the classroom space, then they'll go onto the bus and learn about Python, computer programming, and Raspberry Pi, and Linux certifications. So it kind of, and we can also tailor that too. A lot of times, teachers really want us to talk about the pathway to careers in STEM, and so we can talk more specifically about that, or we can talk specifically about the use of robotics in manufacturing industries. So inside the bus, we can tailor our programming, but it's typically about 20 minutes or so, and it's this auxiliary experience. Then they switch out, and then the other 15 goes in the bus. But then, by the end of the 3-hour period, all the students have gone through the 20-minute tour of the bus and then participated in the full class. So it's very well orchestrated. We have it timed, we have it regulated. Our staff knows when to take students, when to bring them back, and it's all timed and very carefully coordinated.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so the Geek Bus has been around for 3-4 years?
This will be its 4th year.
Okay. And so a question that came in was, how do I put this? If like tomorrow, with all of the 4-year knowledge of having done the iterations of the Geek Bus, you were tasked with building it from scratch, like putting it together, what would you do differently, or what kind of things have you learned along the way that would really inform either on the scale of the Geek Bus or on a smaller scale, like maybe more of a van with cart situation? Like what would be the really crucial things that either you do differently than you did before, or that you did and you maintain? Yeah,
I'm actually a consultant professionally now for this idea. I've become the nation's expert on mobile making units, and I've consulted with the museums in Dallas and Pittsburgh and wherever else that kind of need this kind of help. So having a giant bus is just super expensive, and so I really wouldn't recommend that unless you've got like $1 million funding stream or something. So the small Sprinter sized van, the Dodge Sprinter, or there's several manufacturers of that size of van, or like a taco truck kind of size vehicle is what I've been recommending the most, because there's really the experience that the kids get on the bus, I feel, isn't as impactful as the 3-hour-long class. So what they're really getting is this detailed instruction time with a technology. And so taking the kids on the bus is a big wow factor, and it's like, oh wow, super cool, flashy lights, cool robots and stuff. But I don't feel that that's the most impactful part of the program. So if you just have a regular size Sprinter van and then take all of your materials and set up in the school library or wherever the school has space for, I feel that's really the best way to operate mobile making programs.
Awesome. And for those tuning in, a couple days ago, we posted on the forum about some people's, the construction of what the actual carts can look like in those types of situations that could be useful. But we've seen, like, the Geekbus is obviously very high tech, is like really on the tech side of things. But it seems like people are doing it with lower tech making spaces as well. I don't know if you've seen much of that in kind of your consulting work, but people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Don't
There's a truck in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's more hand tools and wood fabricating and that kind of stuff. And it really depends on your market and your customers or your students who you're trying to serve. And for us, it really depended on our sponsors. So the reason why we were able to have a big giant bus in the fantasy program is because of our main sponsor, Rackspace, who's a technology program, and they really wanted to focus on high-end technology. And so we end up doing a lot of work around Linux and the Raspberry Pi operating system and that kind of stuff.
Great. That actually segues really nicely into another question which you have been alluding to throughout, which is the question of sponsorship and funding. Could you talk a little bit more about your experience and also in your consulting work, how it is you advise people to, source materials or to get investors interested in a space that's mobile?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of feel like the Geekbus has paved the way for future funders of mobile makerspaces, because a lot of mobile makerspaces that are coming out now are citing the Geekbus as a model of success, and if investors can see that this program has done so well, then they can pick up this and replicate it somewhere else and do it just as well. So I feel that if you're looking for sponsorship out there, point them to the Geekbus and say, look, this is what they've already done. This is the model of success. We just want to replicate this and maybe even do it cheaper. But as far as cultivating that sponsorship or donor relationship, you really have to formalize a personal relationship with somebody at a given organization, based on wherever you're at, and let them know what you're up to and what you're doing and why you're doing it. Share documents with them or videos and pictures. Show them the impact that the students are receiving, because that's the ultimate goal. Is we're trying to leverage this so that we can have more opportunities for students. So showing them pictures and videos of your work that you're doing with students and telling them how having a mobile operation will be able to increase your effectiveness. Investors and donors, they want to know statistical information about where their money is going to impact. So if you say, for X number of dollars, we can reach X number of students. For X number of dollars, we'll be able to expand our program and reach more spaces. So you have to be able to explain to them exactly how the money that you're asking for is going to lead to an impact, and they want to see a number there that you can track over time. And so that's something that we learned very early on. So we produce an annual publication about the impact of the Geekbus and the number of students that it serves, and we developed early on a survey instrument with researchers from the University of Texas at Austin, and it's just like a little card that we hand out at the end of every Geekbus experience, where students rate on a Likert scale, whether they enjoyed the presentation, whether they learned more about a technology, whether they're more interested in learning about STEM or more interested in STEM careers. And it's those metrics that allow us to be able to go and ask for more funds. So we can say, like, by the end of the year, these 8,000 students said that they were more interested in STEM careers than they were before. Well, that's very interesting to donors who own technology companies.
Absolutely. Switching gears a little bit, but in the same relationship vein, you said that the Geekbus now is very well established and books 2 to 3 months out. But I'm wondering, when you were initially starting up and building those relationships with schools and trying to kind of showcase before there was kind of all of the history to show, how did you forge relationship? Was it on a teacher basis? Was it with administration? Kind of, what did that look like?
Yeah, well, I'm probably fortunate because I come from a background in education. I worked for the state of Texas Education Agency, and I had already been working on a state level. So I had lots of contacts and lots of connections. But one thing that was really helpful for me in the first year was kind of just giving away days of service for free. So I would call up schools and museums and libraries and say, hey, we'd love to just come and bring the bus out for a day for free. This is a promotional thing that we're trying to do to get more people interested and involved. And that seemed to do quite well for us.
Cool.
Nice.
Any
Yeah,
other burning
I
questions?
think that's all. And I don't see that we have any from live viewers.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think people should know as they're kind of getting their gears turning about all this?
You know, you definitely need a plan, and you need lots of funding to pull this off, and you need the staff that's capable of doing this. When I first started the Geekbus, I was building the website, answering the phone, driving the bus to its locations, teaching the classes, writing the grants, getting the donors. So it was a startup for me as an entrepreneur, and so I was doing all the groundwork. It would have been nice to have the backing of an organization, with help, and that kind of thing. So having enough staff to be able to maintain is important.
Yeah, that always is crucial. So for everyone watching, recorded or live, we'll share all of Mark's contact information that was on that last slide. Thank you so much for offering to keep in touch with folks. And it looks like we have one more question that just came in. Recreate has asked, how did you go from the free days, the promotional days, to then asking to be paid for the events? How did that transition look like?
Yeah, so I guess our free events were so awesome that people were willing to pay for them in return, for the next time around. And I kind of set it up that way. I'll let people know in advance, that, hey, this is a free promotional thing that I'm giving you. The value of this is normally $1,000 a day. I don't want to formulate a relationship with you, so I'm going to come out to your site for free. And I let them know up front that I'm trying to gather their business, and I'm giving them a free day of service in advance, hoping that eventually they'll come back and ask me for future days of service.
Sure.
And working directly with school districts has been really beneficial because during the summertime when schools are designing their budgets for the school year, I'll call and try to speak with the principals and get them to book out 4 or 5 days of service over the course of the year and say, hey, I want to see every 5th grade student at your campus. Let's set up a day each 6 weeks or something. And so that's been really helpful, is to formulate strong relationships with principals and school districts. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense, especially that expectation setting that this is a promotional day and it's a promotion because in the future it will come at a cost.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if there's no more questions on the forum or on the live users, as we mentioned, we'll share all the contact information, and the recorded the video will be up as well for anyone who wants to rewatch it, who's watching now. And thank you so much, Mark. Mark's been a part of Maker Education Initiative, Maker Ed as an organization and the movement from before it was even a thing. So we're so fortunate to have you share your wealth of experience, and yeah, and I'm also really excited to see what everyone kind of takes from this and how they implement the various different stages of mobile spaces, because I know from talking in kind of one-on-one conversations, a lot of people are thinking about this, and it may look like a bus and it may look like something totally different. So we're excited to see what comes.
Well, and I think that once there are a lot of mobile maker vehicles out there, I want to have a convoy to Maker Fair next year. Where all the mobile makers will come. Yeah.
Love it. So stay tuned, folks, for the mobile maker convoy. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Mark.